Um, just getting this started up. That right now, so you can tell me if this is working right. The reading will start at 4, just as I stated. Not checking on there then, but oh well. Also, hello, Sierra. Okay, now I can see a bit more on this page. Hello, whoever joined. Hi, Brandon. Nobody's telling me. I can just. I'm doing good. I'm about to read 3 of my stories starting at 4. Okay. Oh, well, he left. Okay, it's 4 now, so it's time for me to get started. Hello, this is the Lord Girl 1-1, aka Zuperzine creator. Today I am reading the first 3 stories of Zuperzine Time. And yeah, this is a thing. The first story is called Zuperzine Reborn. And I'm writing this off of my website, so it's labeled as Zuperzine number 45 instead of Zuperzine XII number 1. So it's a thing. Okay. Prologue. Zuperzine is reborn. 195 years have passed since the Ozians broke away from the Mammalians and they left Earth. Many things have happened since this time. Sometime in the 22nd century in heaven, Zane took in a disciple named Shimoin, and they eventually fell in love, as him and Kirk were the guardians of heaven. At some point in the late 23rd century, Mass brainwashed her, and she was brought back to life in 2295, and under his control, he created Shalia. Unfortunately for Mass, however, Dr. Bauer, who had also had Mammalians, Bruce, and Fireball on his side, created human-cat hybrids that went out of control and took over Seattle, creating Ferocity. To add, Zizapion made the son of their leader his new spiritual descendant. His name was Raumaiau, and he would become president of Ferocity. He eventually made allies with most of North America and defeated Shimoin by turning Super Relation 4, freeing her. After that, in 2305, he eventually took Ferocity to space. Zane reincarnated into the evil angel Saturn and was trying to bring him down. But with the help of many, including Zizapion, Yolanda Katano, Tank the Tumsterdogan, Zane from previous reality, who's known as Classic Zane, and many more helped bring him down, and he mastered his transformation. Angel transformed back into Zane, essentially bringing him back to life, and he had lost all memories of being Angel and was now over 225,000 times stronger than before, and the great leader of the Zuper team was reborn with many allies by his side. Okay. Part 1. The Ozian Kingdom. Merlin the Katano, Raumaiau, the Ferocinian president with gray fur and green eyes, Tank the Tumsterdogan, Zane, who now has a decently sized beard, Shimoin, who has blonde hair and green eyes, Screechbite, the Ferocinian general with brown fur and dark blue eyes, Classic Zane, who is a stick figure, Bruce, the former Canadian Prime Minister, before that was one of Samantha's soldiers, having yellow fur and green eyes, Fireball, the former Mammalian sage, who has orange fur and green eyes, Nicole, who was one of Sam's allies but is now part of Ferocity, and Zizapion, the time god, flew away from the now Ferocinian base on Neptune and were flying to Kiro. When they got there, they landed on the south part of Kiro, which now has a large kingdom with a great castle. I know you might not recognize it, Zane and Raumaiau, but down there is Asia, the capital of the Ozian Empire, Zizapion told them. When they landed, they were greeted by a large gray tabby cat with green eyes and a golden crown, with a green gem in the center, and white gems around the rest of the crown. He went to Raumaiau and asked him, "Are you the new spiritual descendant of Zizapion, the one known as Raumaiau?" "I am." "Are you the leader of Asia?" Raumaiau asked. "I am indeed." "Welcome, President of Ferocity. I have been waiting for you. You can just call me Ozzy Jr., the cat responded. Part 2. The new Zuper team. So after all these years, I see that you're still alive and well. It's been over 200 years since I've last seen you. You have grown to quite the leader. I bet Sam is proud, Zane told him. Wait, Zane? I thought you died back when I was only a kitten, Ozzy Jr. said in surprise. It's a long story that I think should be saved for another time, Zizapion told him. So how is your operation to build the new Zuper team going? Merlin asked him. I'm having some difficulties, but now that you're here, how about you guys be the new Zuper team? Ozzy Jr. asked. I think that's a great idea, Tank responded. Wait, what happened to the old Zuper team? Zane asked. It was split in two, and over time it died off, as there were no new members and people in the team were dying, Zizapion told him. Who should the new leaders be then? Nicole asked them. Well, I think Zane has the best idea of what the Zuper team leader should be, so he should be one of the leaders. I think the other should be Mammalians, as he has more leadership experience here than anyone else, if you include Zane. If you exclude Zane, I bet. There are more typos and there are more mistakes in my own speech than there are typos in the text. Anyways, I continue. Then I guess you should be deputy, Zane told him. That went easier than I expected, Ozzy Jr. said, laughing. At that moment, however, a man of tall red hair, pale skin, red eyes, and a black and gold trench coat, black pants, and shoes landed. That man, that's not Zapin, is it? Tank asked. Not even close, Zane answered. Though from the description you wouldn't be able to tell. Okay. Part 3, The Fourth Gardener. Merlin looked at the red-haired man and noticed something. I think I know him, but I'm not certain, he said. I noticed it as well. Like this is a man I know all too well, Zapion added. The man then walked towards them. Who are you? Mammalians asked. The man then responded, saying, I'm the gardener. The classic Zane looked at him furiously. Possess! He shouted. He then attempted to charge at him, but Merlin stopped him. That's the name I was called back when I was controlled by the Paradox Heart, but that is not me anymore. I apologize for whatever that old man that used to be me did to you, he told them. What do you mean by that? Bruce asked. It's something called regeneration. When the people of my species are about to pass on, we change our bodies into a new one, which allows us to live on, but it also changes who we are. That can be a good thing, like how that strict old man regenerated me, but it can also be a bad thing, like what I learned happened I might become after I regenerate again. The gardener responded. That makes you the fourth gardener, am I correct? Tank asked. How did you know that? The gardener asked. Good question, Tank responded. Because this dog has been with the Katano and must be eliminated, a voice said from the sky. They then looked up and saw thousands of flying mammalian cat with silver headbands, each with a golden gem and with an hourglass in the center. It's the Mammalians, Nicole shouted in fear. Yeah, to make things worse, they're the hourglass variety, Zapion added. Also, once again, I apologize if I sound I'm sorry if my voice is annoying you. I'm just trying to say that. Okay. Part 4. Hourglass Mammalians. Oh no you don't. Ozzy is not going down today, Merlin shouted. He then shot violet beams at them and killed almost all of them. Sam Jr. never learns, does he? Merlin said. Hey, someone said from Merlin. It was one of the Hourglass Mammalians who had tapped the gem on his headband before Merlin noticed. Merlin was about to go for the attack, but the Mammalian disappeared. Zapion noticed it, and he said, This is really bad. Things could get really ugly. Why? All of them are gone, so what's the issue? Screechbite asked. Did you see those things in their head? That is why they're called Hourglass Mammalians. Do you want to know why they are so feared? Merlin asked. How come? Bruce asked. These things allow them to travel to any point in time. More than likely, that Mammalian has went to the past to alter time. To when and where, I have no idea, Merlin said. The gardener then responded, that Mammalian went to the year 2099 to a camp located on the beach on planet Earth in a Posiverse. The strongest being there is named Darkness Not Yet. Okay, we get where and when he went. No more information is needed, Merlin told him, cutting him off. Okay. Part 5. Time travel goes wrong. So, how do you suppose we deal with the Mammalian? Mammalians asked. Well, there's one thing we can do, but I can't guarantee that we'll end up in the right time, Merlin said. You don't mean that, do you? Zuperzine asked. I don't see any other option here, Zuperzine, Merlin responded. Well, if it's the only way, Zuperzine said. I can't do this alone, however. Anyone willing to join me? Merlin asked. To save my team in the past, you can count me in, Zane said. I'll go as well to make sure things go right, Ramayo added. Okay then, get ready, guys, Merlin told them. He then opened a hole in time and dragged them in with him. When they were in there, Merlin began flying through the harsh winds of time. This is the time vortex. With my aura, I am able to travel through here to some extent, he said. To some extent? Grandma asked. Well, to some extent, I mean, Merlin tried to answer, but they were hit by something. They were then sent flying out of the time vortex. What's going on? Zane asked. I think we're about to die, Merlin responded. They then fell unconscious due to the extreme conditions. Sometime later, they landed somewhere. Zane opened his eyes and saw that he was laying on grass. Where am I? He muttered. He managed to raise his head and saw a house that was white. Is this Earth? He asked, before he got weaker and then passed out once again. Part 6. A Different Reality. Later, Merlin woke up and smacked Zane on the head, waking him up as well. Zane then nudged Raomeow. Come on, wake up, Zane told him. The human-cat hybrid then awoke. Oh, okay, somebody just commented. Is this a book that you've written? This is on my website. So no, it has not been published as a book. This is just on my website. It's a story that I wrote and put on my website. Okay, to continue. He looked around and said, "Where are we? To be honest, I have no clue. Maybe Earth," Zane responded. "I don't know. I can't use any of my aura right now." "Is it the same for you guys?" Merlin asked. They both tried to use their aura, but nothing happened. "It seems that way," Raomeow told him. "Well then, considering how he flew out of the time vortex, I think there's only one logical explanation. We are in a different reality. A reality where we cannot use any aura," Merlin said. As they were speaking, Zane saw a boy with curly black hair, brown eyes, and a lightly colored jacket with red question marks on it. "Who are you?" Zane asked. Merlin and Raomeow then turned to face them, ceasing their conversation. I'm the doctor," the boy responded. He then saw Merlin and asked, "I've met you somewhere before, haven't I? Are you by any chance Merlin the Gitano?" "Yes, indeed I am," Merlin responded. Part 7. The Doctor. "So what might you be doing here?" the doctor asked. "I tried to fly through the time vortex. As usual, it didn't go very well. I thought I was done for good this time," Merlin responded. "Does the doctor by any chance have a connection with the gardener?" Raomeow asked him. "The 5th and 11th do, but I don't know about this one. I've never seen or heard of this doctor before, as a matter of fact," Merlin responded. "So, if I've watched enough Doctor Who, I'm guessing this guy has a ship that travels through time and space called the TARDIS," Zane asked. "That is correct," Merlin told him, surprised at him knowing that. "If that's the case, he can help us get back to our reality." "If that's the case, can he help us get back to our reality?" Raomeow asked. "I was about to get to that," Merlin responded. "So, can you help us out?" Merlin asked. "Sure thing," the doctor responded. They then followed him and went into his ship. He looked around in it. "Is this a ship or someone's dirty basement?" Zane asked. "No need to be rude. I'm sure this is just a theme he chose this time around," Merlin told him. "Okay," Zane responded. They then entered the console room, and someone was there. Part 8. The Fifth Gardener. When they entered the console room, the doctor saw the person in there, and it was a light-skinned old man with curly white hair, red eyes, red glasses, a black suit with a red bow tie, and a white undershirt, brown cloak, purple pants, brown shoes, and the expression on his face was evil and serious. Who are you? Who are you, and what are you doing in my TARDIS? The doctor asked. You are the 14th Doctor, am I correct? I'm the 5th Gardener, and you are on the wrong side of this war, the old man responded. I don't know what you're talking about, the doctor responded. The ones you bring onto the ship are part of the sick and twisted Ozian Empire. And as a personal friend of Sam Jr., I cannot allow you to go any further, Doctor. This is goodbye, the old man responded. He then flashed behind the doctor, Merlin and Ralmaow, and knocked them out. He then said, now that everyone that can do anything is out of the way, and took control of the ship. Zane ran to stop him, but before he could do anything, the gardener disappeared. Zane went to the console and was confused by the controls. I don't get how to fly this thing at all, Zane asked. He then was about to try to mess with the controls, but then the ship crashed. Part 9. When the ship crashed, Zane was still conscious. He heard someone banging on the TARDIS door, and he could hear a voice that was familiar to them. Hey, open up, it said. Could it be? Zane muttered. He then made his way to the doors and opened them, and he saw a man of 20-foot tall, red hair, and green eyes outside of the door. Zane? He asked. Zapin? Zane asked back. He looked more outside and saw the familiar white marble landscape. What year is it? It's 2305. I heard that after you guys left yesterday, you guys were nowhere in time and space, Zapin responded. That means that we're home, Zane said. Oh, and that stick figure of the same name as you took care of at Mammalian, apparently. Apparently he can time travel, too. His isn't much better, though, Zapin added. Zapin, could you get someone here who can heal? Merlin, Ralmaow, and someone else is in there, unconscious. We were attacked by an old man claiming to be Sam Jr.'s ally, Zane asked. Of course! I'm just glad you guys made it, Zapin shouted. Part 10. Recovery. After that day, the Zapion arrived and he took everyone out of the ship and into an empty Ozian house. He then healed Merlin, Ralmaow, and the doctor. I sometimes forget how great of a healer Zapion is, Zane said. When they got better, Ralmaow got up and said, I had a strange dream. We ended up in a different reality and we couldn't use aura, and we met a strange man called the Doctor. We got on his ship, but it was hijacked by an old man. That wasn't a dream, Zane said. Ralmaow then saw the Doctor. That was real, he muttered. The doctor then asked, Where am I? The Ozian Kingdom. I'll explain more later, Merlin responded. Someone then barged into the building, and it was the 4th Gardener. What are you doing here? Zapin asked. I just found out that my future self is working for Sam Jr. He captured some girl he found on a TARDIS. I don't know what he intends to do with her, but knowing the Mammalians, it can't be anything good, he responded. Wait, what? The doctor asked in shock. To be continued. Okay. Okay. We're gonna have a brief pause. That way I can get myself something to drink. Okay. I'm back. Okay. Heaven's Destruction is the second story, and it's also Zuperzine number 46. Because this isn't, remember, this is on my website, so. Prologue. Sam Jr.'s wife. Back in the year 2113, Sam Jr. and a woman in her mid-20s with curly blonde hair and blue eyes were walking through a wedding aisle set in the vast meadow of Momu. The Mammalians gasped as the groom, a mammalian cat, and the bride, an earthling woman, were getting married, something seen as taboo on Momu, just like it would be on Earth. When they got up to the priest, who himself had a funny look on his face, asked his short ruler, Emperor Sam Jr., do you take this earthling human as your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Sam Jr. responded. He then asked the blonde woman, and Zuper Team Deputy Yolanda, do you take this all-powerful Momulian cat as your lawfully wedded husband? I do, she said with a joyful look on her face. You may now kiss the bride, the priest had said. At that moment, the unthinkable happened. Something so vile that most of the Mammalians attended vomited. Sam Jr. had just kissed his new wife. I'm sorry, I can't keep a straight face at this. And just kissed his new wife, now named Yolanda Katzen. Sam Jr. then saw the Mammalians' reactions and said, do you want me to wipe you all away? They then stopped. After that day, Sam Jr. overthrew his own mother, who was the Empress, and gave Yolanda the crown, and they ruled together for a grand total of 68 years, until Yolanda met a fate that all humans face, while Sam Jr. hadn't aged a day. Yolanda, on the other hand, died of old age, being 94 years old. After her death in 2181, Chemical retook the throne, and Sam Jr. made a vow. He would bring Yolanda back to life, no matter the cost, so they can rule together again. But this time, for all eternity, he would hope. This was obviously impossible until the year 2305 rolled around. Okay. Part 1. Yolanda Returns. One day in 2305, after the doctor had arrived in Cairo, the fifth gardener entered the Mammalian castle with the body of an unconscious girl. She had long brown hair, a large blue jacket, a blue scarf, a gray pair of pants, turquoise shoes, and ridiculous red, strangely shaped glasses. Sam Jr. saw the glasses and said, those make for a horrible fashion statement, and then said, who is this? This is a girl I found on the ship. These glasses are a possession device I personally made. When she wakes up, how about you ask who she is? I think you'll be pleased if things worked out correctly, the gardener responded. The gardener then snapped, and the girl woke up, revealing her hazel eyes. I'm alive? She asked. She then looked at herself and stated, this is a new body. I guess that makes sense, considering how old my previous body must be by now. She then looked at Sam Jr. and asked, you went this far for me? Who are you supposed to be? The Mammalian Emperor asked. I know it's been over a century, but how could you forget your own wife? She asked him, with a sad look in her eyes. Yolanda? You look nothing like you did before. I guess I could get used to it, though, Sam Jr. told her. So, should we do something together now that we're back together? She asked. I have been saving something special for this. I think it's about time that I destroyed heaven for not accepting a wonderful woman like yourself, Sam Jr. said. Aw, that's so romantic. I love you, honey, Yolanda said to him, giving him a massive hug. Also, please stop messing with the couch. Like, seriously, they would not be too happy with that. Okay. Part 2. Heaven's New Guardians. Meanwhile, on the island in heaven where Zane used to be before he was reincarnated was his blind brother Kirk, and with him were Layla and Zoey, filling the vacant spot that Zane left behind when he was reincarnated. They were the guardians of heaven, just like Zane before them. Kurt then went to the two girls in panic. "What's wrong, Kurt?" Layla asked. "There's a being from the underworld attacking a small nearby. A small town nearby?" There's a missing word there. "This isn't just any ordinary being either," Kurt told them. "I'm sure it's nothing I can't handle. Let's go, Zoey," Layla then said. Afterwards, the three of them flew there, in the village, to the being was attacking, and the being shouted, How dare you be able to be here when I'm always stuck in the underworld? Ah! Part 3. Johnny attacks heaven. When Layla, Zoey, and Kirk got to the village, they saw a very tall, bald man with orange eyes and aura that was flaring orange. "It's Donnie, isn't it?" Layla asked. "It sure does look like it," Kirk told her. They then flew to him. "You don't belong here, Donnie. Leave now," Kirk then told him. "Then make me!" Donnie shouted back at them. "We're Heaven's guardians. We're going to have to send you back to the underworld," Layla then told him. Afterwards, Donnie then released light blue aura and began to grow light blue fur all over his body. Donnie had turned Super Legion 3. Zoey then also turned Super Legion 3 and it flew at him. "Z Crystal!" she shouted as she fired a very large Z Crystal at the man. Donnie then punched the Z Crystal away with his fist and then punched Zoey in the face so hard that she was knocked out. Donnie then shouted, "Blood Z Crystal!" as he fired an even larger Blood Z Crystal at Layla and Kurt, but Layla turned Super Legion 4 and deflected it, causing the Z Crystal to blow up in Donnie's face. Donnie then began to release Rainbow Aura, but before anything could come out of it, a voice shouted, "Time Beam!" Afterwards, a blue laser hit Donnie in the back and he was disintegrated. Part 4. Possession is complete. Kurt and Layla then began looking around in confusion with Zoey in Kurt's arms. "Well, he's gone now, at least," Kurt told her. "Yeah, but I wonder who defeated him," Layla then asked. Zoey then began opening her eyes, and when she did, she saw someone approaching from above. "Someone's coming," she told Kurt as she got out of his arms. Afterwards, the girl with brown hair, hazel eyes, a blue scarf and a coat, and a strange pair of glasses descended. Now, however, she was also wearing a silver headband with an hourglass symbol in the center. "She must be one of Sam Jr.'s hourglass mammalians," Kurt then told them. "Who are you?" Zoey then asked her. "My name is Yolanda Katzen, Sam Jr.'s wife," she then responded. "I remember Yolanda. You don't look anything like her," Layla then told her. "Thanks to the help of some old man, I managed to take control of this girl's body. Also, since the possession is complete, I suppose I won't need these anymore." Yolanda then told her before taking off the strange glasses, dropping them down into the endless sky below. She then looked at them and told them, "Oh, and that Hope City is being invaded. It would be a shame if you can't get there to help them in time." Kurt then told Zoey and Layla, "I'll deal with Hope City. You two deal with this weirdo." They agree, and then Kurt flew off as Zoey and Layla prevented Yolanda from following. Part 5. Mammalians in Hope City. After hearing about the invasion, Kurt then flew to Hope City, which is the main city of heaven. When they get there, they see the invaders are Mammalians, all with the same silver headbands on their heads that Yolanda had. "So it's the hourglass Mammalians. I should have known," Kurt then said to himself. He looked at them and then saw the small gray violet cat with green eyes that was Sam Jr. He then flew down to him. Kirk confronted Sam Jr. and told him, "Coming here was the biggest mistake you could have ever made." Or you could have made. Ever was not even in there. Okay. "There is not a single star here to fuel your power. You don't stand a chance." Sam Jr. then looked at him and said, "I will not need any stars to defeat a pathetic human like you." "We'll see about that," Kirk then said as he turned super Elysian, his blonde hair turning orange. "I may want to warn you. I'm no ordinary human," Kirk then told him. "Yeah, you're no ordinary human. An ordinary human has more brains than a fool like you," Sam Jr. said with a mocking laugh. Part 6. Yolanda Travels in Time. Meanwhile, by the island in heaven, Layla and Zoey are fighting Yolanda. Layla is in her mastered Super Elysian 4 form, and Zoey is in her Super Elysian 3 form. They have been trying to shoot attacks at her, but Yolanda keeps destroying their attacks with time beams. "Why can't I hit you?" Layla then shouted as she charged at her. Yolanda then tapped the gem on her forehead and said with the words, "Take me to October 20th, 1999. She then disappeared before Layla could land a punch on her. Zoey then flew to Layla and asked her, "What just happened?" "This girl must be capable of time traveling. She probably went back to kill us before we're born," Layla then concluded. Zoey then grabbed onto Layla's arm and began clinging to her in fear. "I never thought I would see you so afraid," Layla told her. "Aren't you able to do anything, Layla?" Zoey then asked in terror. "Unfortunately, I do not have the ability to travel through time. We're done for, aren't we?" Layla then said as tears began coming out of her eyes and she began crying on Layla. Layla then thought to herself, "Merlin, I'm putting my faith in you now. Please don't let us down." Part 7. Kirk fights Sam Jr. While Zoey and Layla were fighting Yolanda, Kirk was making no progress in his Super Elysian form, so they turned Super Elysian 3. Kirk then sent a giant golden flame at Sam Jr., which he slapped down into Hope City, destroying the city below. "How dare you do this to the innocent angels of Hope City? I'll make you pay," Kirk then screamed as he began creating yellow hail. But Sam Jr. dodged every piece of the hail at speeds that made Kirk unable to see him. When he reappeared, Kirk then shouted, "Kirk blast!" before firing a giant blast of lightning at Sam Jr. But Sam Jr. then disappeared. After the attack, before Kirk could do anything else, Sam Jr. appeared in front of him and grabbed him by the neck and said, "I told you that I don't need any stars to defeat you." Sam Jr. then shouted, "Paradox 5," as he fired a giant pink blast out of his paws, erasing Kirk from the face of the multiverse. He won't be coming back after that one," Sam Jr. then said before he flew off into heaven's skies. Part 8. Heaven is destroyed. Meanwhile, Zoey was clinging to Zoey and crying on her arm. Wait, no, Zoey was clinging to Layla and crying on her arms. That would be a strange reversal. Anyways. And then, right before Layla's eyes, Sam Jr. appeared in front of them. He then looked at them and said, "You two have failed as guardians of heaven. Kirk now ceases to exist and Hope City is destroyed, and you're about to join them." Sam Jr. then began charging an attack, and before he could do anything, someone grabbed Zoey and Layla and flew off with them, getting them out of harm's way. "Oh well, now there's nothing stopping me from destroying this place," Sam Jr. then said. Afterwards, Sam Jr. then released a huge mass of pink aura and completely destroyed heaven, as well as erasing everyone that still existed there from existence. The being who was carrying the two was flying out of heaven and into the dumbverse with them when they saw heaven getting destroyed. "What's going to happen to everyone who's in heaven? Are they going to Kiro?" Zoey then asked the being who saved them, which was a plump black cat with green eyes similar to Sam's. The cat then told them, "Those who are hit by those types of attacks from Sam Jr. are completely destroyed, and not even Omega can bring them back." "Oh no!" Zoey then cried. The cat who saved them was Samantha. Sam's mother and the heroine hope goddess. What about Yolanda? She traveled back in time, Layla then asked. Don't worry, we have it all under control, I assure you, she then told them. To be continued. Okay, there's only one more story left of these three, and there hasn't been any more stories made after that yet, so yeah. Next story is called Pursuing Yolanda, and it's the third story of Zuperzine Time and the 47th story of Zuperzine. Okay, so prologue. Previously, even though I just told y'all this is going to be a recap of the prologue anyway, so I gotta read it again. Previously, 2305, with the help of the fifth gardener, the wife of Sam Jr., Yolanda, who had passed away so many years before of old age, was brought back to life by using a strange device in the form of a pair of glasses, letting her possess a girl with long brown hair, a large blue jacket, a blue scarf, a gray pair of pants, turquoise shoes, and hazel eyes. To celebrate her return, they and the Hourglass Mammalians decide to attack Heaven. When they get there, Sam Jr. and the other Hourglass Mammalians head towards the main city of Heaven, Hope City, while Yolanda heads towards the island where the Guardians of Heaven are. The Guardians of Heaven, being Kirk, Layla, and Zoey, are fighting Donnie when he is killed by Yolanda using Time Beam, and afterwards her possession is complete, allowing her to take off the glasses. She tells them about the other Mammalians attacking Hope City, so Kurt flies to Hope City to save the city, leaving Layla and Zoey to fight Yolanda. Sam Jr. easily kills Kurt, and the other two fight Yolanda before she disappeared after tapping the gem on her headband, telling it to take her to October 20th, 1999. Afterwards, Zoey grabbed onto Layla in fear and began crying when a plump black cat, being the hope goddess Samantha, takes the two and escapes Heaven with them, which was destroyed afterwards by an attack from Sam Jr., with the beings destroyed in the attack erased from existence. Part 1. Plan to stop Yolanda. Afterwards, Layla, Zoey, and Samantha landed on Kira, where Zane, Merlin, Ralmael, the Doctor, the Fourth Gardener, Zayton, and Zapion were. Hey, what are these angels doing here? Zapin asked Samantha when he saw Layla and Zoey. Samantha then told them Heaven was destroyed by Sam Jr., and those two are the only ones who managed to escape. Also, apparently I learned that Yolanda is back, now in a different body, and apparently she time traveled to October 20th, 1999. I suspect that she must have traveled through time to kill me and Zoey before we were born, Layla then added. And the only thing for us to do is to travel through time and stop her before she can, Merlin then decided. I doubt we're going to get there with your time and traveling abilities, seeing how you did last time, Zane then told him. That really only leaves one way for us to travel through time to save them, the Fourth Gardener said in response. He then turned to the Doctor and Ralmael asked him, will you be willing to help us stop Yolanda from succeeding in altering time? Considering how dangerous it would be to let something like that happen, I suppose I don't have much choice, he then told him in response. I think the ones who should go are Zapion, Merlin, Tank, Loki, and of course the Doctor himself, Samantha then told them. They agreed. Merlin, Zapion, and the Doctor then left, asking Loki and Tank to join them, and then they got on the Doctor's TARDIS and left to stop Yolanda. Okay. Part 2. Yolanda in the Past. After Yolanda tapped on the gem on her headband and told it that she wanted to go, when she wanted to go, the gem then led her through time to when she wanted to be, which was October 20th, 1999. She was still in Heaven, and when she arrived, she then flew out, catching the attention of the main Guardian of Heaven at that time, Who was Meepa before he became a god? What was that? He exclaimed. A female purple mammalian cat with purple eyes, who was Zippy, then looked at him and said, "Don't worry. Samatha predicted this would happen. Leave it alone. The problem will solve itself." Samatha said that? Well, okay then, Meepa said before returning to his usual routine. Yolanda then flew to Earth, and then went to the city of Frederick. This was before Sam had reached the city, and before many, including Layla and Zane, were ever born. This is the town where Layla's mother lives. Layla should still be inside her if the hourglass gem worked correctly. So if I kill her, Layla should cease to exist, Yolanda said to herself. She then looked around and realized something. If I keep looking around like this, I'm never going to find her mother. That leaves only one option. I must destroy this town. Doing so will also cost me my own life, included since my great-great-grandfather lives here. But that's the price I must pay so my husband can rule over all of time, she then shouted. Part 3. Tank versus Yolanda. As Yolanda is above Frederick in 1999, planning to destroy it, a white house appears and lands in an empty space in the city. This house was the 14th Doctor's TARDIS. Tank then heads towards the door and tells them, "Don't worry, guys. I'll take care of this." Are you sure he's up to this? The Doctor then asked. "I believe he's capable. Tank isn't just any ordinary dog," Merlin then told him. The Doctor then opened the door, and a black dog jumped out and flew out into the sky at high speeds. "This is going to be like a car going up against a slug," Merlin then told the others. "You sure do have a lot of faith in him, don't you?" Zapian asked. Merlin nodded. Tank then reached Yolanda in an instant using his nose. "Whatever you plan on doing, I'm not letting you do it," Tank then told her. "I'd like to see you try to stop me, you black mutt," Yolanda told him. "Did you just call me a mutt? I prefer to be called a mixed breed," Tank then growled before flying at her at high speeds. She tried to attack but couldn't keep up with Tank's sheer speed as he was moving so fast that she could barely see him. Not too long afterwards, Tank knocked Yolanda out. Before she could fall to her death, however, Tank caught the girl with his back and flew back to the others. The door then opened and Tank went back in with the girl on his back. Part 4. The girl is freed. When Tank arrived in the ship and with the girl still on his back, he set her on the ground and the Doctor recognized her immediately. He then shouted, "Crystal!" before running to her. "She's still alive. I only did enough to knock her out, but I made sure not to seriously harm her. I figured that this girl must have been important to somebody. I just hope that I did enough to drive Yolanda's spirit out of her body," Tank then said. "I'm pretty sure you drove her out successfully," Zapian told him. "What tells you that?" Loki then asked him, as this confused even him. "I remember seeing her spirit not long after creating the spirits of my first 2 spiritual descendants. I knew her spirit seemed out of place, and Omega realized it too," Zapian then told him. "What happened to her after that? You haven't told anyone about this before," Loki then asked him. "Omega ate her. He completely transformed her soul within his body and turned her into Agrog," Zapian responded. "Wait, what?" Merlin said in shock. "It's just as shocking as it sounds, I know," Zapian told him. The Doctor then told them, "Thank you so much," before they flew back to the time Merlin and the others came from, and the ship reappeared on Kiro. Part 5. Going Separate Ways. When the ship returned to Kiro, the door then opened, and Merlin, Tank, Loki, and Zapian were prepared to get off. Before they do, however, Merlin tells the Doctor, "Thank you for helping us." Loki then adds, "Thanks to you, I think I know how to make a sort of TARDIS of my own." Merlin, Loki, and Tank then get off, but the Zapian has something else to tell the Doctor. "You should leave back to your own reality now, and make sure Crystal has no memories of being here. It is for her own good," he tells him. He then gives him a card before also leaving the ship. After they got off and were all on the surface of Cairo, the ship then began to disappear, and with it, so did the 14th Doctor and Crystal, heading back to their own reality. I hope they have a safe trip back. It's getting dangerous with the Hourglass Mammalians around, Loki said. I'm sure he's just fine. Trust me. I met one of his previous incarnations before, Merlin told him. The fourth gardener then walked to them. It's strange, though. This doctor doesn't exist in my reality, he then told them. Really? Merlin asked. What's the one from your reality like? Zapion then asked. I can't tell you that, the fourth gardener told them. Why not? Merlin asked. Ask those beyond the fourth wall, he told them. What? Merlin asked, sounding dumbfounded. He then laughed. What an interesting guy, Zapion said to himself. Part 6. The Card. On his ship, the 14th Doctor held the card, which had a Z crystal on each side, and when he opened it up, it said, Dear Doctor, thank you for all of your help. We are truly in your debt. We wish you and Crystal luck wherever you may go next. And when you look back at this letter, I hope you realize that you did the right thing. Sincerely, Zapion, Merlin, Tank, and all of us from the Ozian Alliance. Afterwards, he put the card somewhere on a ship where Crystal would never find it before she later regained consciousness, having no memories of the events that had just occurred. To be continued. Yeah, and it says to be continued in Zuperzine number 48, Fall of the Underworld. So that's the end of these three stories and that whole crossover thing. But Zuperzine time itself is not over yet. It's not even halfway over, as a matter of fact. But the other stories aren't made yet, so I can't read it anymore. So, I hope you all have a good day. Bye.